to revamp the whole system is, it's just a mess, right?
See, I disagree. I think that the way you revamp the system is by demolishing the whole thing. And the way you do that is to actually go back to the root of the way God wanted humans to be and families to be.
Yeah.
Where a man could go be a provider, mom could stay home and do what she's incredible at, and that's raise the children, do a really good job. See, I used to talk about this, and I gave a talk about it. See, I was raised by a single mom, and my mom went to college. She got a degree. She did everything the world told her to do, and she still never made any money. We still were struggling financially, even though she did everything. And so you could argue, say, well, the pay gap and doing all this stuff. But the real problem was a single income household trying to provide for multiple children.
Right.
It was a broken household, right? And so if you look at families where dad can really go do a great job of providing, the average work week has shrunk, right? Where men in the 60s, I think the average work week was, maybe Mal, you can look this up. I think the average work week of men in the 60s was like 60, 70 hours a week. Today it's like 35. Right, so they're working half as much, and they're complaining about not making as much. But you're not actually doing any work. I mean, what do you do with the rest of your time? So he's talk about this where it's like, all right, if you want to solve the problem, then we should raise families the way it's supposed to happen, where women are really good at raising kids. Men are not as patient. They're not as good at pouring into kids when times are hard or emotional. Men are good at, I think, teaching kids.
Feminine women are good at raising kids.
Yes.
Right? Masculine men are good at providing, protecting, presiding, right? The problem is those roles are getting swapped so much, right? So we got masculine women and more feminine men, and that's causing an issue, right?
Yes.
So what you're talking about is right on. We need feminine women who remain feminine, right?
Yes.
Which means men who are married to those women have to be acting as masculine men.
Yep.
Because if they're not acting as masculine men, then the woman has to become masculine.
Yes.
To do the masculine duties, and then the man then becomes feminine. And that's the issues we're having right now.
It is the exact issues, and I was raised in a household where those issues were obvious to me, and so I looked at those and just say, like, to me, it's an easy or a simple solution. But it's not easy. So it's very simple, but it's hard. And I think we've got to start with more men saying, I'm willing to provide. Like, I'm willing to go out and work hard and provide for my family, regardless of what that means for them. And then them to raise great families and stick around. Like, men need to stick around and raise their children and provide and be fathers and dads. And that allows mom to actually do education, teach the kids, meals, healthy eating. Like, you go back to look at the diets kids are eating, look at the things they're learning. Well, a lot of those things can be solved by simply mom just being able to stay home and raise the kids.
Right. Yeah.
So
there's so much programming happening right now that I don't think a lot of people out there realize they're even being programmed. We got these devices that we're looking at all the time. And Russell M. Nelson, President Nelson, President of LDS Church, says, be careful where you get what you think truth is, right? Like if you're getting truth, if you think you're getting truth off social media, you might want to double check that.
Yeah.
And it's so true. There are some things on social media that are true.
Yeah.
Absolutely, right? But if it's not in alignment with the things you're talking about, which are the laws of God, then you're going to be off base. And that's we're in a spiritual battle right now, right?
Totally.
And it's a major battle. So I think this last 2-3 weeks ago, there was that Andrew Tate interview with Tucker Carlson, right?
Yeah.
I think it's the most watched interview
of
in history.
Time. Yeah, over 80 million people, I think, probably more than that at this point.
Yeah, and whether somebody likes Andrew Tate or Tucker Carlson or whatever, I think if you can listen to it, I do think if you actually listen to it, the way that Andrew Tate articulates how men should be, I think is pretty dang close to the way God intended men to be.
I agree.
But you got to listen to the whole thing. You can't just make it, because he's accused of all these these crimes, and did he do them? Did he not do them? No one's found anything yet, right?
Right.
But what he says and his message is pretty clear. So if you, those of you out here haven't listened to that, you should listen to that. It's like a 2-hour interview.
Yeah, maybe, I think 2.5 hours, super good. Yeah, it's on Twitter.
I think it's good. I mean,
it's phenomenal. it is so spot on with a lot of the things he explains, not only the problems we're having, but also the solutions. Like you look at, and it's just hard to argue with obvious solutions, right? It's like, all right, so, people talk about progress and change and all this kind of stuff. And you look at how much, as you progress and you go, oh, well, maybe some of these ideas have led us so far out of the way that maybe that wasn't the kind of progress we were trying to make. It's right. Like we were talking about diet the other day, and I'm like, dude, if you watch Alone, and you watch these people who are dropped off in the Alaskan wilderness or the, high North Canadian wilderness, and they have to survive, they're not going, oh, hey, how can I, get some supplements from vitamins and all this kind of stuff. They're going, in order for me to live, I need to have game, I need to have meat, I need to have fat, right? Because even if you have meat and you just have protein, you still are going to starve to death.
Or if you're just trying to live off berries, you're not going to make it.
You're not. No. Even if you just have carbs, you're not going to make it. You need fat, fat. And so you look at, and I just always, as I watch those things, I go, this is the way God wanted us to live. Like there's a lot of lessons when you take everything away and you just go out into the wilderness and think, okay, if I had to start all over right now, what is the best way? First thing is food, shelter, water, those things taken care of. It's like one of the things Andrew Tate talks about in that interview, which I totally agree with, is so many of these problems are manufactured in the world today because people's lives are too easy. And so naturally humans are always looking for solutions to problems. That's the way our brain works. Nobody can argue with that. It's scientifically proven. And because of that, if somebody doesn't have any actual problems, they need to make some up in their minds.
Yep.
And that's the real problem, is life is too easy for most people. It's really not hard. And the problem is that a lot of people whose life is too easy, they don't actually travel around the world to see the way it is in other countries. And so they think, oh, because they live in an apartment, they've got an iPhone, and they've got, they take public transportation, that they're poor and their life sucks and it's horrible and all this kind of stuff. When the reality is they've got shelter, they've got clean water, they've got transportation to and from work. They've got far more than most people in the world have. And those people that have far less are actually a lot happier because they're so focused on actually providing for their family.
Just surviving.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's really it. I mean, I think if we get too caught up in what someone else is thinking about us, we may not be too focused enough on our purpose, Yeah. When we're going somewhere and we're focused on it, I mean, I know this is for me anyway. What other people are saying about me really doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
So anyway, I
comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah. And man, I'll tell you what, just with this Andrew Tate interview, just some of the feedback of people, I was kind of looking through my Twitter, and it's obviously been a big topic of conversation. And Nicole Arbor, I don't know if you saw her tweet.
I didn't.
So
I had one pulled up.
She can say some funny things and be entertaining, but she says this, and this. So I read this and I go, okay, this is. So I would say this. Usually she's pretty conservative, right? Okay. Yeah. Would you agree? I mean, do you know her?
I don't know her. Really
okay. I mean, she's a comedian.
Yeah.
She's So usually she's pretty conservative, but she's talking about his interview. She says, "Listen, if you back this guy, you're trash. Any male influencers paying him money to do interviews because they know it'll generate them revenue are also trash." Talking about Tucker, right? And anyone dumb enough to fall for all of this Matrix is trying to get me BS is just another one of his hoes, right? That's what she says. Anyway, and then you can go through and read the comments, and for the most part, people will stand up for Andrew and Tucker, saying you obviously didn't listen to the interview, at least not very closely, right?
Yeah.
But so the point is, I mean, there's all this stuff that you can read, and off the headline, and I think a lot of people, they do just go off what they read on the headline, and they just that's it, right? Instead of actually listening to it and looking into it for themselves and really thinking about it and pondering it. And I don't know. I mean,
well, I think that's a lot of problems in society today. Is they're letting algorithms on the internet create a narrative when all the algorithms are designed to do is create bias. So why is there so much division happening? Well, because when you have AI or you have algorithms that are designed to simply enforce what you think you believe and feed you more of it so you'll invest more time on that platform, they don't realize how far Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all these social media platforms have gone into saying, oh, you believe that? Well, here's more of it. Here's more of it. Here's more of it. And whether or not that belief is correct is simply 10-second clips to reinforce a belief that you may have that could be wrong. And then you just get this information bias, right? Or confirmation bias where it's like, oh yeah, see, I told you all day, every day it's being fed. And it reminds me, one time I was watching this interview on Netflix with David Letterman and Obama. Mm-hmm. And I remember Kelsey coming and she's like, what are you doing watching this? And I'm like, I'm okay with listening. It doesn't hurt me to listen to somebody else's perspective. I don't have to take a hard stance in listening to someone. I can hear them out first and then have an opinion on what I hear, right? And one of the things I thought was super powerful that he said that I never really thought about until that point was he said something to the effect of, and again, I'm paraphrasing dramatically, is he said, look, if you're a conservative and you go Google Egypt at this point, and some people may not remember, but when Obama was president, Christians their heads were being chopped off on the beaches in Egypt, right? Mm-hmm. And he says, right now, if you're a conservative and you Google Egypt, you're going to get jihadists chopping Christians' head off, how dangerous it is. They're killing Christians. That's what you get if you Google Egypt. He goes, but if you're a liberal and you Google Egypt, same exact Google search. All you type in is Egypt, and you're going to get nicest hotels, best beaches, all this stuff. Simply because they're trying to feed what they think you want, mm-hmm. right? And how does it know if you're a liberal or a conservative? Well, Google has a lot of information on, if you're registered to vote, what do you search, what is being emailed to you.
Yeah, back then it was more what you put in the computer. Now they just listen on your phone.
Yes, now they just listen to you, even if your phone's turned off, mm-hmm. right? So the conversations you're having. So I don't think people realize that that's actually happening to them. And so with social media, they're being fed a bunch of stuff rather than like being able to just have an opinion about something, like having some critical thinking.
Yeah. I mean, and we tend to get ourselves in an echo chamber, right? Yeah. So we tend to, we create a bubble around ourselves based on how we believe.
Yep.
I mean, look, I'll admit, I live in this incredible neighborhood. I live in southern Utah. It's a bubble.
Yeah.
And it's a freaking awesome bubble. And I'm glad, and I know I'm in the bubble, and I'm glad I'm in the bubble. It's a cool place to be, right?
Yes.
And what I appreciate about other people's points of view, like I would say I'm in more of a bubble. I don't know. We all have bubbles. But you came from a very different upbringing than I did.
Right.
We both lived in Utah, but your upbringing was and so you saw the outside of the bubble that I lived.
Yeah.
So to hear your stories of growing up and everything, I mean, that was completely foreign to me. I didn't have any clue. I don't want to say I didn't have any clue. I knew people were in rougher circumstances than I was. I knew that. I wasn't dumb. But until I went on my church mission, and I remember landing in Philadelphia. It was December. No, sorry, it was January. And it was pouring rain, wintertime. And I remember driving over the Ben Franklin Bridge over the river into Camden, New Jersey, mm-hmm. and seeing all the projects, and I'd never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
So I'm this young man from Utah, mm-hmm. grew up in Sandy, Utah, right? Really only had ever been on an airplane one time to go to Vegas for a wrestling tournament, so I'd never been outside of Utah other than, maybe there and Wyoming and those places. And I just remember the shock that I felt seeing that. Yeah. Now, my point with this is we all tend to have the bubble that we live in, and I've chosen to create a bubble. And after serving that mission, seeing how other, I guess, I don't want to say, I guess classes, I don't know if middle class, lower class,
but I think it's class, just how other people live in different parts of the world. Yeah.
And experiencing that, coming home from that, recognizing very clearly the bubble that I wanted to create for my life and my family, which I've done,